All right, guys, welcome to the YouTube channel. I usually post podcast stuff and sales stuff. Today, I wanted to do a reaction video. You guys have seen this video a ton, whether it's been on like TikTok or Instagram, like I've seen it floating around. I found the original one and I kind of wanted to go through this as far as like just kind of walking through like how to handle price objections like in the right way. Because this video, I mean, so the video is Chris Doe and he is doing a role play with another person, and they're talking about pricing, right? And I think it's just really interesting how we enter the price negotiations, and I would love to just go over some of it. So again, this video, Chris Doe, and what we're looking at here is it looks like Mo. So Chris Doe and Mo Ismail doing a quick role play. So let's kind of break down a few of these things. I'm gonna start it really quick from the beginning, and we'll just kind of break it down as we go.
What's up, Chris?
Hey, Mo.
I'm super glad you can take this call. I was hoping that you could cut up one of those banger videos that you make that I see on your website.
Okay, so let's stop right there. I think this is important. Okay, so he's letting the client go first. He's letting them ask what they want from Chris, which I think is great. Let them kind of tell you what's going on. I think so far we're doing really good. So let's see how the rest of it plays out.
I'd love to do that for you. What's your budget?
Okay. All right. Now we got to come back because Chris asked, what's your budget? I don't think that would be my first question. In fact, it would never be my first question. Here's why. When you ask somebody what their budget is, you're taking ownership of that budget. You're taking ownership and you're asking them, well, what can you afford? Even if you know that they can't afford it, or you're not sure if they can afford it, what is your budget is probably the worst way to start a pricing negotiation. This is what I would do. Now I've seen this video. So right now, Chris is at a $4,000 website. This guy wants, or a $4,000 video. The other guy wants it for $1,000, and he's really struggling. If it were me and I were in Chris's spot, this is what I would do. I would say that Chris asked the client, he said, I want you to make one of those dope videos for me. And Chris's next words could have been, that sounds awesome. We love making those videos. Typically, when a client in your position wants a video like this, it ranges anywhere between $4,000 and $10,000. If we find the video, you love, and we end up coming to an agreement, is that something you're comfortable with? And then letting them tell you that they're not comfortable for that, and then starting the price negotiation. But now that Chris has kind of assumed ownership of his budget, this is going to be a really tough conversation. So let's keep watching.
I have $1,000.
$1,000. Is this video important to you?
Okay. So another really bad question. He sighed, which is not a good thing to do. If you're in a real negotiation and someone says, look, I have $1,000 for a video, and the first thing you tell me is, and like, you saw Chris like drop his shoulders, his head kind of dropped, that's a really tough place to be in. And then he asked I thought just another not good question. And here's why I don't think it was good. When you ask somebody like, is this video important to you? Here's the problem. They know exactly what you're doing. If I said, well, how important is it really to you? Is it really, it must not be that important if you can't afford me. Like that's what Chris is saying. I don't think that's very wise to approach that. It's very confrontational. I don't know if that works very often. Maybe it does for Chris, because Chris is very charismatic. He's very persuasive. He's very influential. And that's the other thing when you're talking about price negotiation. It's important when you're handling price objection, or really any objection, to find a cadence that works with your flow, right? To find the words that fit your flow. So maybe this works for Chris all the time. I don't know. I've seen this video floating around, but this is the first time I've actually seen Chris do this. But let's keep going, because it might surprise us. He might be on the right track, and I might just be full of shit.
I think it will be if you do it.
What problem does this solve for $1,000?
Okay. What problem does this solve for $1,000? All right. I don't know how far Chris has gotten into this conversation. I've kind of missed the whole thing because look, closing isn't a step in the process. It's not like you meet the customer, you qualify them, see if they're good enough for you, then you pitch them, then you start closing, right? Closing happens all the way at the beginning. Like a good salesman knows someone's budget before we ever get to this point, right? Like if you're okay with qualifying somebody, you have to be okay with disqualifying somebody. And that is where I think a lot of this gets really muddy, and where Chris, I mean, and look, sometimes this happens where a customer doesn't want to go through all of this. They just want the brass tacks and they just want a price. And so maybe you get thrown into a position like this and you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. And so this is how it plays out. But typically what we want to do as salespeople is set this up the right way. Right now, you know, just with this, I think Chris is doing fine. I think he could have switched up a couple of his questions, but I mean, at the end of the day, this is kind of what we've got. So let's keep watching and see what happens in this conversation.
We're trying to build awareness. No one's walking into the store.
Okay. So how much awareness do you want it to build?
You know, I'd like to have at least 2 to 3 people walk into the store, an increase of 2 to 3 people. A day. Sorry, a day. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So he's asking good questions. He's trying to now he's kind of setting it up. He should have started that at the beginning. And look, hey, let me stop right here. Chris has an amazing platform. He makes way more money than me. So if you're watching this, Chris, I could be blowing smoke, but this is just my sales process is a little bit different than this. But now he's starting to ask good questions like, how much awareness do you want this to build? What kind of goals are you hoping to reach? He's setting the customer up to then use value. So now he's starting to do this with empathy, right? Now he's starting the sales process with, where is this guy coming from? What is he trying to accomplish? What are his goals? And then you kind of go from there. So I think now, you know, Chris is doing a really good job. So let's keep watching and see what happens.
And so what kind of business would that generate for you?
Our average product sells for about $100.
Okay. Good question. Let's keep going.
So you're looking at about $200 to $300 worth of increased revenue.
$200, $300 worth of increased revenue, $1,000 video. Yeah, this is going to be Chris is handling this really well. This is just a really tough spot to be in.
Okay. So let's say 250. We'll split the difference.
That sounds good to me.
Times 30 days.
Split the difference. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
30 days a month on average. What does that work out to be? That's $7,500 of new revenue for you a month.
Mm-hmm.
Does spending $1,000 seem appropriate for some?
Okay, so this is where, all right. Okay. This is where like the facial, like, listen, 80% of what you say is in your body language. And I get that Chris is surrounded by his crew. This is a role play. This might not actually be what Chris does. But if you put a video out that says how to respond when a client says the price is too high, if you put that video out, it should be pretty accurate. And if you're huffing and puffing, if you're saying if you're going ugh, like all of these things, clients don't really respond to that very well, right? And I get that these guys are all homies, they're together, they're role playing. But if you're putting this out for educational purposes, you should make it realistic. And I don't like that Chris went right to, does spending $1,000 to get 75 seem appropriate? Yeah, it does seem appropriate. Like that's the right answer to that question is yes, right? Now the customer's right answer is yes. Chris's answer is no. Like if I'm going to bring you in this revenue, my skills, you should be willing to pay for that. And so right now we're just kind of battling. And like I said, this video floats around everywhere. And right now, like we're a few minutes into this conversation and it's just not going very well in my mind. So we'll just, we'll see what happens.
$2,500 of revenue per month.
It's more than 10%, right?
A month? Are you going to do $1,000 video every month?
Good question there. $4,000 video for one time. That would make sense. But if you want to go monthly, I like Chris saying that. Are you going to do $1,000 video every month? Because that changes the conversation. If we lock in to a 12-month contract, then $1,000 video a month makes sense because you got long-term revenue. You got recurring monthly revenue, and that's big for a business. So I like where he's going here. That was a great question. But again, I just feel like it's kind of like a, it's just, there's a lot of tension right now, and a good negotiator tries to ease that tension.
Maybe if you do this one good.
Okay. I'm a little concerned.
You see his homies laughing in the background. That's funny. Okay. So he said, I'm concerned. Not the best word not the word I would use, not the best one you could use, but let's see.
This is not enough money. And I'd like to share with you a quote I love from business philosopher Jim Rohn.
Okay, Jim Rohn's fine. Here's the problem. He's using a lot of sighs. He's using a lot of like defeated body language. He's not really opening the conversation up and letting the customer talk. And then he says the word like, well, I'm concerned. Listen, if I'm a customer, you're like, as a business who's trying to sell me something, I don't really care about your concerns. Like, the answer is yes or no. Can you do this for $1,000? I like how Chris is continuing the conversation, but ultimately, here's the problem. We're not getting into that rhythm, right? Like, we're not doing the conversation any kind of justice. So let's finish this up. Let's wrap this up, because I do have a couple things to say about this when we're done.
So it feels a little disproportionate, doesn't it?
When you say that quote, I think it does.
Okay, when you say that quote, I think it does. No customer would actually say that in real life.
You can't just roll right into my
Come on,
just roll. You can't.
But I mean, you
Okay, he's like, no, you can't just say that. That's not fair. Okay, that makes sense.
do business. You don't want to overspend. And are you going to guarantee me $7,500 a month?
I'm not saying that at all.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a great question. So he's like, he flipped the script. You don't want to spend that, all that good stuff. Would you do that? This is what customers do in real life. They flip the script on you. And it's really hard to come back from that because, first of all, we should have never been in this spot. But
I'm just trying to measure effort versus result.
Okay.
When somebody comes to me and they say, I don't have a lot of money to do something, my first instinct is say, let's not do it.
Yeah, that's right. That's what you should have done. And you should have known that way before you got to this conversation.
It's not important. Wouldn't that be your instinct too?
Okay, I don't like that question, telling somebody it's not important, because again, it's very confrontational. Like, if this was a real life conversation, this is a very confrontational conversation. So I'm gonna pause right there. You guys can go finish the video. That'll be in the description below. Like I said, I think Chris does an amazing job, but here's the problem. In this exchange, and like I said before, if this is an educational video, it should be very realistic. Role plays should be called real plays. Like, how you act in this situation should be how you act in a real life, because like, practice like you play, right? And if Chris actually does this and it works, like, good for him. Like, obviously he's very successful, and he has a product people want. So, that's a really good spot for him to be in. But again, like this, it's just a very confrontational thing. So here's what I would do differently. The first thing is, I wouldn't ask somebody what their budget is. I would tell them what they can expect to spend. That turns the whole table of the conversation. Second thing, I would have learned what he cared about most and what his budget was way before we got to this negotiation, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. And then third, treat people like people. Like, nobody wants to be taught. Like, and nobody really cares about a business's like needs. Like, if this is a customer client business and we're meeting for the first time, I don't really care about what you have. I don't care if your margins are thin. I don't care if your supply is low. Like, can you supply me? And look, is that not an ideal situation? Of course, it's definitely not ideal. But the reality is that happens every day. If a customer can't buy it from you, they'll go to somebody else to buy it. So I hope you learned a lot from this. That's my reaction video to Chris Do. And that's how I would do a lot of the sales and handle those price objections. So catch me on the next video. Thanks so much for watching.